Welcome to the Strange and Interesting Podcast, a show about folklore, the paranormal, urban legends, and pretty much anything else I happen to find strange or interesting. I am your host, Al. Summer is drawing to a close. This is the time of year when children are off from school and many people try to take some time off from their normal routine to go on vacation. When I was a child, my family often went camping, though another favorite destination of ours was Wisconsin Dells. When we visited this small town with a disproportionately high number of tourist traps, we would take in some of the popular attractions like the water parks and the boat tours along the Wisconsin River. Another attraction I remember was Robot World, which was later rebranded as Tommy Bartlett's Exploratory Interactive Science Center. It features a variety of puzzles and interactive displays. I can certainly recommend visiting this place if you are ever in the area. Though there are several places I wanted to go, but never had a chance to because my parents didn't want to spend the money to take us there. One such attraction was called the Wonder Spot. The attraction closed in 2006, but I had the opportunity to visit it with my wife in 2004. The thumbnail image for this episode is one of the pictures from our visit and shows water appearing to flow up a slope. Places like the Wonder Spot are not unique to Wisconsin Dells. There are many similar destinations across the United States. They go by a variety of names, but many are simply known as mystery spots. Examples of the phenomenon one can expect to see at a mystery spot include water flowing and balls rolling up a slope, feelings of disorientation, and people standing in ways that seem to defy gravity. Mystery spots often have unique stories to explain the unusual things that go on there. The explanation they gave at the Wonder Spot was that there was a large deposit of magnetic minerals nearby that exerted a pull on the surrounding area. Other mystery spots try to claim a supernatural or even extraterrestrial origin. The first known mystery spot is the Oregon Vortex. The owners of this property describe it as a spherical field of force, half above ground and half below. According to the Oregon Vortex's official website, Native Americans were familiar with this place and avoided it because their horses refused to enter the area. This property earned it the name the Forbidden Grounds. In the early 1900s, the Gray Eagle Mining Company built an outpost in the area, but the site was eventually abandoned. After a heavy rainfall, a mudslide caused one of the buildings to slide down the hill and come to rest at a peculiar angle. A prospector named William McClough discovered the site in 1914. He invited John Lister, a geologist friend of his, to investigate the area and its supposed paranormal properties. The site was opened to the public in 1930 as the House of Mystery. A similar attraction called the Mystery Spot opened in Santa Cruz, California by George Prather in the year 1940. According to the Mystery Spot's website, Prather had this to say about how the site's unusual properties were discovered. We took our own small hand compass and went up over the north line to try to check on it. The variation there was not great enough that we could tell anything about it with the point of the hill and through the brush. On returning, we came down the little canyon or draw above here. In doing so, we felt very lightheaded or top-heavy. Felt like something was trying to force us right off the hill. We sat down for a while to try to overcome that feeling. While sitting there, we happened to look at the compass again. There, the compass had varied enough that we needed nothing to compare it with to tell that it was not correct. We began to check from that, and we found the more we checked, the more we found, until we found we had this spot of ground here, about 150 feet in diameter, that, so far, we have not found any instrument absolutely correct over. A portable radio will play any place over it, but with very little variation being the nearest correct that we have found. The attractions website lists possible explanations for the site's unusual properties, with my favorite being that there are metal cones buried in the earth there that serve as navigational aids for extraterrestrials. Some people have even speculated that an actual UFO might be buried there. Because why not, right? There are, of course, perfectly logical explanations for what goes on at a mystery spot. These sites use the terrain and various optical illusions to trick visitors by messing with their perception. Mystery spots are built on a slope of around 20 degrees and are often surrounded by trees or fences. This is important because it obscures your view of the horizon. Without a point of reference, your mind has trouble putting things into their proper context. Psychologists Arthur Shimura and William Prismental from the University of California, Berkeley, conducted research into the type of optical illusions found at the mystery spot and proposed a theory called orientation framing. Basically, the effect created by tilt-induced illusions is due to a distorted frame of reference. A common example is the Ponzo illusion. This picture shows two perpendicular lines superimposed over railroad tracks going off into the distance. Since the top line is perceived as being further away, our minds tell us that that line must be longer, even though both lines are actually the same length. Prismental had this to say about places like the mystery spot in Santa Cruz. You know the house is tilted, but you don't know how much. Everything is tilted. You can't look outside and get a horizon, so you think that what you see is right. The mechanism in us that's responsible for determining the horizontal and vertical is mostly affected by what we see. If the context is screwy, that will throw off what we see as vertical and horizontal. One of the websites I consulted while writing this episode has some diagrams that help illustrate this point. I will include a link in the show notes. One of the illustrations even shows how the water flowing uphill illusion works. After seeing this diagram, I pulled up the picture that I used for this episode's thumbnail. One of the first things our guide did on our tour was show us water flowing uphill. When I tilted my computer screen to the left a bit to simulate where the horizon would have been, the illusion made much more sense. A related phenomenon is called the gravity hill. These hills are often in areas where the topography and surroundings obscure a view of the horizon. This causes a slight downward slope to look like an uphill slope. Thanks to this illusion, a car left in neutral will appear to roll uphill. Gravity hills are sometimes connected to various ghost stories and urban legends. One such location in Titusville, New Jersey, has two legends connected to it. In one version of the legend, a farmer's house caught on fire while his family was inside. Several people parked their cars along the road to watch, but no one got out to help. The farmer's family perished in the fire, and to this day, his ghost will push cars back to the spot where his house used to be, still hoping to find someone who will help. Another story claims that a woman killed her abusive husband and hung his body from a tree. If someone parks their car here, her ghost will push the car to the spot where her husband's body was hung. Locals near Richfield Road in Richfield, North Carolina, claim that the ghost of a mother haunts the area. Her car stalled with her child still inside it. She stepped out of the car to push it to safety. Unfortunately, her car was struck by a speeding truck. Both mother and child were killed, but the mother's spirit still lingers in the area and will push cars up the hill. Supposedly, if you put baby powder on the back of your car and put your car in neutral, you will see handprints showing where the mother's ghost pushed. This is actually not unique to the Richfield Road location. People in other areas claim the same thing, that if you put flour, baby powder, or some other powdery substance on the back of your car, you'll see handprints once your car stops moving. A similar helpful spirit is believed to haunt a gravity hill near Jackson, New Jersey. In this case, the ghost is the soul of a man who died in a motorcycle accident. Residents of Altadena, California, tell of a gravity hill where a busload of school children died, and to this day will push stalled cars up the hill. My home state of Wisconsin has a gravity hill called Joe Road in Calumet County. The legend is that in the early 1900s, the county government wanted to build a road through the area, but this would have crossed over a Native American burial ground. The cemetery caretaker, who was called Indian Joe, would not allow it. He was run over by a car, and the road was built over the place where he died. If you park your car, Joe will push you away to protect the burial ground. However, there is no evidence of a graveyard ever being here. The only house on this road was owned by a man named Joe, but he was not a Native American. There is also a gravity hill in Florida called Spook Hill. This location also has two legends to explain the gravity hill phenomenon. One story claims that it used to be the site of a Native American village, and there was a large alligator that would raid the village and drag people into the swamp and eat them. Well, one day, a mighty warrior, the chief of the village, fought the alligator. In the end, both died, and it was said the chief was buried in this area. So if a car is being pulled backwards, it's either because the chief is protecting the area, or maybe the ghost of the gator is trying to find its next victim. In the 1950s, a local establishment called Barney's Tavern distributed leaflets explaining the real story behind Spook Hill. According to their legend, a pirate named Gimme Sarsaparilla decided to retire from the life of plundering on the high seas. He was joined by a fellow pirate named Tenitit Vanilla. When the pirates died, Vanilla was buried at the foot of the hill, and Sarsaparilla was buried near the lake. But once cars were invented, they noticed that people would sometimes park their cars there to go fishing. And this did not make the pirate Vanilla happy. So he would get the ghosts of other pirates and they would push the car away from the area where he was buried. Finally, Putney Road in Benzie County, Michigan has a gravity hill located near a church. Locals propose a more light-hearted explanation for the gravity hill effect, and that is the church is trying to pull sinners in. Places like mystery spots and gravity hills have taken root in local lore and legends in many places around the world. But no matter what explanation you choose to believe, scientific or supernatural, they are certainly strange and interesting. Thank you for listening. You have been listening to a presentation of Point of Insanity Game Studio. Visit us on the web at poigamestudio.com. Follow us on Twitter at poigamestudio. Look us up on Facebook and email us at poigamestudio@gmail.com.